When it comes to Doctor Who's Rogues Gallery of Monsters, the most iconic addition from the last 30 years are the terrifying Weeping Angels, created by Stephen Moffat for his 2007 episode Blink. The Weeping Angels are stone statues that don't move while they're being observed. The moment you look away or blink, they attack and send you back in time to feed off the days you could have lived, since you die before you can encounter your earlier self. Or according to other episodes, they can just snap your neck, depends what mood they're in. Ever since Blink, the Weeping Angels have become a cultural phenomenon, appearing in multiple episodes and countless pieces of expanded media. But unlike other memorable New Who monsters, the origin of the Weeping Angels has always remained a mystery. All we've been told is that the monsters have been around since the beginning of the universe and exist across all corners of the universe, but that's about it. They have no confirmed home planet, and even the Doctor doesn't know how old they actually are. However, there has actually been a lasting and prevalent fan theory suggesting their true origin has been hiding in plain sight this entire time. Weeping Angels are Time Lords. Okay, so this theory may sound completely bonkers, and I tend to agree. But first, let's see what it actually states to give it a bit of the benefit of the doubt. During the end of time, the High Council of Gallifrey breaks free of the Time War thanks to Rassilon, who attempts to bring Gallifrey itself into the solar system to destroy Earth. This plan was put to a vote, and when Rassilon emerges from the Immortality Gate, he brings with him two punished and shamed Time Lords standing in the same iconic pose as the Weeping Angels, with the Time Lord President saying,
"And will stand as monument to their shame with the Weeping Angels of old."
From this, a theory was born, claiming that all Weeping Angels are punished Time Lords forced to spend all eternity in angel form to feed off the time energy of their victims in order to stay alive. If you assume that the punishment isn't specific to Rassilon and has existed on Gallifrey for a long time, it can be claimed that Time Lords staying in this statue-like position for the rest of their lives could transform them into stone, or Time Lord science purposely turns these disgraced Time Lords into time-travelling statues with an endless appetite, forcing them to roam for all eternity without ever being fully satisfied. It's a punishment that sounds fitting for the Time Lords, who have repeatedly been portrayed as being cold and morally dubious. So the ultimate punishment would be allowing one of their own to travel as much as they like, but the moment a living creature sees them, they stop existing, forcing them into a lonely and isolated existence. It's an ambitious theory, suggesting that these silent assassins have been created by their own race, but is it actually just a fanciful theory based on nothing but a throwaway reference? There is some logic behind this theory. Both species possess time travel abilities and are very intrinsically linked to the power of time travel itself. The Time Lords could have easily created the Weeping Angels either on purpose or by accident, with the monsters using the time vortex to appear throughout the universe at the cost of forgetting where they came from. Both species love to manipulate time, with the Time Lords using it to travel in time and the Weeping Angels feeding off it. So they could be degenerated Time Lords deprived of regeneration energy, desperately feeding off residual time energy to stay alive. Time Lords are beings more powerful than the concept of time itself, so by being forced to hold still forever, they would very likely lose their minds and develop a dependence on time energy. But I just don't really find that plausible. Sure, we don't know a whole lot about Time Lord biology, but we have seen what happens when a Time Lord's ability to regenerate is suspended, and it's very much not a Weeping Angel, it's more like Dobby the House Elf. I'm not quite sure what the steps are between standing in place and becoming a stone Weeping Angel, which is what makes this so hard to believe. I don't understand how they would turn to stone and suddenly become quantum locked. So it's a concept that requires a lot of leaps of logic and just doesn't really hold up to much scrutiny. However, we have actually seen that it's possible for someone to be turned into a Weeping Angel, which we saw happen to the Doctor herself. This lends some credibility to the idea that the transformation can be forced upon someone, converting a living entity into the Angel, which suggests the Time Lords might have done it in the past. But it still remains inconclusive because she is simply turned into a statue form for transport, rather than her actually becoming a quantum locked Weeping Angel. So it's still not exactly proof that this is how the Angels were created to begin with, but as it stands, it is one of the biggest indicators of the theory being accurate. Another piece of evidence comes from more recent history, Series 13 to be specific. In Village of the Angels, it is revealed that the mysterious Time Lord agency known as the Division has been employing Weeping Angels and using their abilities for something called quantum extraction. People had issues with this at the time because they felt it undermined the power and mystique of the Weeping Angels, but what's important here is the Time Lords knowing enough about the Angels to control them and order them around, making them Division agents despite them usually working alone. Having them suddenly answering to a higher power would indicate some sort of relation between the two entities, suggesting that the Time Lords can control angels because they created them to begin with. This line of thinking is further strengthened when you consider the division was active during the chaotic early era of the universe known as the Dark Times, where the Time Lords were at war with races like the Rachnos and the Great Vampires. It's entirely possible that the angels were created as weapons, punishing Time Lords by making them tools of war. But this whole idea falters when you remember that the division didn't only feature Time Lords. It had human and Luparia agents as well, at the very least, so there's nothing to properly suggest that the presence of the angels in this organisation actually supports the overall theory. Possibly the most damning piece of evidence actually comes 24 years before Blink even aired. Indeed, the anniversary special The Five Doctors might actually hold the key. In this story, multiple incarnations of the Doctor participate in the game of Rassilon in Gallifrey's Death Zone. At the same time, the Doctor's former mentor and current Lord President Barusa uncovers the secret to true immortality originally discovered by Time Lord founder Rassilon. However, this actually turns out to be a trap set for power-hungry individuals, so Barusa finds himself being turned into a living statue made of stone, just like a weeping angel. This lends a lot of credibility to the theory, especially because of Rassilon linking them together, suggesting it's a punishment he created and then intended to bring back when he was resurrected for the Time War. However, this is all just coincidence. There's no way Stephen Moffat or Russell T Davies purposefully linked the Weeping Angels and Time Lords simply because of one scene from an episode in 1983. The idea of cursed immortality is an old one, and the concept of being turned into stone dates back centuries. I mean, we can't forget Medusa, can we? Combining cursed immortality and statues isn't anything new, so it's simply a coincidence that this is Barusa's fate. There's no actual proof of a link between this curse and the existence of Weeping Angels. The last bit of evidence comes from a very interesting write-up by Jeff with 1F on the Houston Press blogs. This article draws a link between the Weeping Angels and the Time Lords through the 2002 Big Finish audio Neverland, featuring the 8th Doctor and his companion Charlie Pollard. So beware spoilers for the audio Storm Warning and Neverland. Okay, you ready? We'll carry on then. In Neverland, the Time Lords take the Doctor for the crime of creating a paradox after preventing Charlie's death on the airship R101, since she was supposed to die in the crash. The Time Lords plan to use Charlie as a gateway to an anti-time universe in order to recover the body of Rassilon and restore him to life. However, it turns out that the Gallifreyan elite has been using a device to erase people from history entirely, although these political opponents have actually been banished to the Antiverse, where they colonised a small planet. When the Doctor threatened the fragile web of time by saving Charlie, he opened a gateway allowing these so-called Never persons to return to our universe and consume the linear time they desperately hunger for. They aren't exactly quantum locked, but they cannot be perceived as who they were before due to their erasure from time. Also, they demonstrate the ability to travel vast interstellar distances and even move through the time vortex. We can assume this is also what the Weeping Angels do, since we've never seen them using the technology necessary to reach places like Trenzalore. So this all suggests that the Weeping Angels might be Time Lords who were erased from existence and since returned, giving them twisted and unnatural powers, allowing them themselves to displace and erase people from time. Much like the Five Doctors, their gap in time pretty much disproves the theory immediately, especially because the links are pretty tenuous and don't tie them together much. But I just thought it was a cool thing to mention in relation to the theory. Okay, so you've heard the arguments for, now it's time for the arguments against the Time Lord Weeping Angel theory. First of all, let's revisit the line that started it all.
And will stand as monument to their shame with the Weeping Angels of old.
The key word here is like. Rassilon is referring to them as something he already knows. It's a comparison, not him actually labelling them as Weeping Angels. And the fact he already knows about the Weeping Angels dispels the idea that these two are the first, because it would create a completely unexplored and undeveloped time loop. Also, him using the word old despite him being a Time Lord founder furthers the idea that they're even older than the Time Lords themselves. Something again supported by the Doctor's explanation that they're as old as the universe itself, with no one knowing where they came from. And before you try pulling the Doctor lies card, don't. Just don't. It's such a stupid line and it gets used by fans to justify any theory or headcanon, so it doesn't apply here. Honestly, the only things connecting the Weeping Angels are this throwaway line in the End of Time and the fact that both races can manipulate time. If anything, the Weeping Angels are the opposite of Time Lords. The Time Lords use time travel themselves, the Weeping Angels use time travel on other people. For all we know, they could be naturally evolved predators for Time Lords, their powers designed perfectly to feast endlessly on the long lives of Time Lords and their TARDISes. This makes more sense than the idea that they were actually created by the Time Lords. Additionally, the Time Lords aren't the only species in the Doctor universe with time travel capabilities. We're shown humans harnessing the ability through vortex manipulators or the Tesselector, which can travel through time. The Daleks are able to travel through time as well. The Doctor's people may have had the ultimate mastery over these powers, but there's nothing to say that the Weeping Angels couldn't have simply developed their abilities naturally. This brings me to my main point. Do we really need to know where the Weeping Angels come from or how they became what they are? Not every villain or monster needs its own origin story like the Daleks or the Cybermen. With how expansive the Doctor universe is, sometimes there are just things with no explanation, and that's what makes the Weeping Angels so unique. The less we know about them, the scarier they are. As more and more lore was introduced, the less effective the Angels were. Knowing everything about the monsters would make them so much less mysterious and memorable. We were actually supposed to find out a lot more Weeping Angel lore in Series 2 of the failed Doctor Who spin-off Class, paying off a cliffhanger of the Series 1 finale where we see a cult worshipping the statues. In a 2021 interview with the Radio Times, creator Patrick Ness explained that Series 2 would have explored the creature's origins, the protagonists visiting the home planet and discovering a civil war between different factions of the species. It's pretty much fan consensus that this would have been a bad idea, answering too many questions and stripping away mysteries. Even the mere suggestion that the Weeping Angels have a society is damaging enough to their presence within the show. Nevertheless, Patrick Ness's plans seem to completely contradict the Time Lord fan theory, since to go to the Weeping Angels' home planet would mean Gallifrey, which had only just returned in Hellbent, and the reveal would probably be a bit too big and groundbreaking to simply relegate to a spin-off involving completely original characters instead of it being told in the main show. The universe of Doctor Who is endless, both physically and creatively, so not everything needs an answer. The Weeping Angels thrive on mystery and captured the imaginations of fans and casual viewers alike because of their terrifying premise and unknown origin. The Weeping Angel Time Lord fan theory is a bizarre one, because it's one that actively works to lessen the uniqueness of one of the most iconic and celebrated monsters in the show's history. It's okay to want answers and to create headcanon, since Doctor Who has no set canon and that's what makes it beautiful. It can be whatever you want it to be, but some theories are simply too much of a stretch for me to get behind. There is such little evidence supporting the idea of Weeping Angels being Time Lords because all it comes from is a throwaway reference in the End of Time. Everything else is pure baseless speculation and it assumes way too much in order to make itself work. It's not really the worst fan theory out there, but it's definitely a weak one and I'm surprised it gained so much traction and continues to be believed even after all these years. But what do you think? Are the Weeping Angels actually disgraced Time Lords? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. And I'd like to give an extra special thank you to my Diamond level patron Fallon Cortez, and all my Gold level patrons, Alex Marston, Basil Disco PhD, Calvin, Daniel Shilato, Franz Horn AK Line Vortex, Herna Verzog, Luke_SY, and Stefan Never Miller. Thank you so much for all the support.